My name is Captain Michael Kozo, and I am with the FDNY's Fire Safety Education Unit. I'm here today to talk a little bit about fire safety education. We want to go over some of the common causes of fires, how we can avoid those fires happening in your home, and what to do in the case that a fire does happen in your home. So first we're going to go over a few little statistics, some numbers for some recent years. So in 2019, New York City experienced 66 fire deaths, which was a 25% decline from 2018, at which time there were 88 deaths. The top three causes of fatal fires in 2017 were electrical, cooking, and smoking. Okay, so we want to go over those today. We're definitely going to go over all of those causes and how to avoid those from happening to you. Fire deaths have dropped steadily during the past decades, and studies have shown that there is a direct link to strong public education programs, which is why you have the pleasure of having me here with you today. Most fires do occur between 12 midnight and 8 a.m. when most people are asleep. Most fires begin in the kitchen or bedroom. Most fatal fires do occur during the cold winter months, and we will go over some of the reasons for that later on in this presentation. The major causes of residential fires are improperly discarded smoking material, faulty electrical wiring, and the use of space heaters or open flames, all of which we will cover today. Most fires do smolder for some time before ignition. And some of the circumstances that contribute to the likelihood of a fatal fire victim are not having an operable or audible smoke alarm to provide an early warning. Probably the most important thing that we're going to go over today is the importance of a working smoke alarm in your home. Inappropriate evacuation response, including attempting to fight the fire. All right, we don't want you to try and fight the fire. Re-entering the fire building. We always tell everybody, once you get out, you stay out, no matter what. You don't want to ever go back in for any reason whatsoever. And a failure to develop and practice a fire escape plan, blocked or inaccessible escape routes. Okay, all things that we are going to go over today. So what we are going to start with is cooking fires, and a leading cause of cooking fires is unattended cooking. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that a lot of people nowadays, and I understand we have a lot going on, we're trying to multitask. So what happens is a lot of times you'll start cooking, you'll put something on the stove, and then you walk away. Okay, you're going to help somebody with their homework, you're going to watch TV, you're going to take a shower, and you tend to walk away from the stove, and that's when we're seeing a lot of these fires occurring. Okay, so what we do recommend is that you stand by your pan, is what we say. A nice little ring to it, right? You want to make sure that if you are cooking that you stand by your pan. You should not be walking away when you're cooking. If you are going to walk away for some reason, we do suggest that you shut off the stove if you're going to walk away for some time. If it's a quick thing, maybe your doorbell rings or something like that, just a quick tip if you forget to shut off the stove or you don't want to stop cooking, one thing that I do suggest is that you put your oven mitt on. You put your oven mitt on, you go answer the door, somebody starts talking to you at the door and you get involved in a conversation, and the next thing you know, they're going to say, wait a second, why do you have your oven mitt on? Or you're going to look at the oven mitt and say, hold on a second, I'm still cooking. All right, just something to jog your memory. You could always set a timer to remind yourself that you are cooking. So there's a few things that you can do, but we do highly recommend that you stand by your pan and you don't walk away from the stove when you are cooking. So here we go, right? Never leave food unattended. You want to heat cooking oils gradually. I understand we're all in a rush, so what people tend to do is they'll throw the oil on real quick and then they put the heat as high as it can to get that oil heated up very quickly. You don't want to do that. You want to heat the oil up very gradually. A lot of people tend to have the pot handles facing outward, right? And now you're cooking, and what happens? You have a child who comes up and they grab the pan and they're going to burn themselves, or you're not paying attention and you bump into the pan and you knock it over. So we do suggest that the pot handles are always facing inwards so that nobody can grab them, you're not going to bump into them. And the clothes that you're wearing is very important. You want to make sure that you are wearing tight fitted clothing, short sleeves, or you roll up a long sleeve and make sure that it's tight and stays up. Okay, what tends to happen, people wake up in the morning, they have their robes on or they have baggy clothes and they start cooking, and next thing you know their shirt is dangling over the stove, their shirt lights on fire, and there you go. So that's we want to try and avoid that if at all possible, and that's an easy one. Keep anything that can catch fire, such as paper, plastic bags, towels, away from the stovetop, right? Some people, they want to clean as they're cooking so the stove doesn't get a mess, and they keep the paper towels right next to the stove. Next thing you know, the wind blows, something happens, and the paper towels knock over and the paper towels are on fire. So you want to keep anything that can burn away from the stovetop, if at all possible. And we never want to put aluminum foil, metal objects in the microwave oven, okay? Not a good idea. Effective December 2018, the local law 117 came out, And that has to do with the stove knob covers for your stoves. What that local law says is that the owner of a multiple dwelling must provide stove knob covers for gas-powered stoves in a unit where a child under 6 years old resides. Also, provide stove knob covers in a unit without a child under 6 if the tenant requests it. So if you have a child under 6, they have to provide it. If you don't have a child under 6 and you request it, they still have to provide it. These stove knob covers are really good, okay, especially if you have children. You put the stove knob cover on so the child can't come up to the stove and just turn the stove on, okay? So it is a nice little safety feature, and it is a law now. A lot of people aren't aware of that, but you can request it, and the owner has to provide them for you. So what happens now if we do have a little bit of a grease fire or something like that? We should all know that we cannot use water to put out a grease fire. All that's going to do is inflame this fire. It's going to make it worse. So a couple things when you're cooking. You always want to have your oven mitt on. Okay, we do recommend a longer oven mitt, not one of those short ones that just comes up to your wrist. We do recommend one that'll come up to your arm. Protect your arm a little bit, okay? When you're cooking, you should have that oven mitt on. Let's just say that we have a small fire, we're cooking, and we have a little bit of a grease fire. What you want to do is try and turn that stove off as quickly as possible so we stop that fire from being fueled by any further heat. You want to shut it off. All right, you can take the cover to the pan, which you always want to have on hand when you're cooking. You can take the cover to the pan and you can throw the cover on top, okay? Now this is for a small little fire that's not coming out of the pan yet, all right? If you start to see the fire coming out of the pan, what you can do is take the cover and you want to get down on your knees nice and low to the pan, and you get down, you put the cover in front of your face and you come up and you drop the cover on top, all right? This way you're not exposed to the flames and you're able to smother this fire, okay? Another option that you do have is baking soda. All right, you keep the baking soda around when you're cooking. You can take the baking soda, pour it over the entire fire. This is again for a small fire. You smother that fire, then you take the cover and you put the cover on top. All right, this isn't the time to take out the measuring cup and start measuring the baking soda. Don't be stingy. Pour the baking soda all over this pan. Make sure you cover the entire pan, and then you put the cover on top and smother that fire. One thing you want to remember that you don't want to do, and a lot of people tend to get curious, right? You just smothered this fire, and a minute later, what if some people want to do? They want to take a peek, right? Open up that cover, right? You don't want to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to introduce oxygen into this fire. The fire is going to come right out of that pan, right into your face, okay? So you want to take this and you want to leave it for no less than 5 minutes, okay? You'll start to see white smoke coming out, meaning that the fire is going out, but you want to leave it alone. If anything, you want to take it and move it off of the hot burner that it's sitting on onto a cool burner, so again, the oils aren't still staying heated inside the pan, okay? Another thing that we can do is close the door if the fire is in your oven, okay? You have a fire in the oven itself, keep the door closed. Again, opening the door is going to introduce that oxygen, which you don't want to do, and you're going to allow the flames to come out and be fed by the oxygen. So you want to keep the oven door closed, shut the oven off, and the fire will go out. Another option that we do have is fire extinguishers. Some people have them, some people don't. What I do recommend is that if you do have one, that you know how to use it, and we're going to go over that briefly today. But a few things you do want to keep in mind. If you're going to have a fire extinguisher, you want to make sure it's an ABC fire extinguisher. That's the types of fires that it will put out. And an ABC fire extinguisher will put out the types of fires that we need it to here, okay? You want to make sure that you don't have a water extinguisher. Now, how do you know what kind of extinguisher it is? Well, first of all, it will say ABC on it. You will also see some pictures. You can see the pictures here in blue. Okay, these pictures represent the ABC types of fires that they're talking about. As long as you do not see an X through the picture, that means it puts out that type of fire. If you see an X through one of the pictures, it does not put out that type of fire, and it's not going to be an ABC extinguisher. So you want to make sure that you do have an ABC extinguisher. Also, if you have an extinguisher, you always want to make sure that you check the gauge at least once a month to make sure the gauge is in the green. Okay, that gauge should stay in the green at all times. These are a one-use kind of extinguisher, okay? These are small extinguishers, one-time use. If you use it, but let's say you don't use the whole thing, discard it, get a new one, okay? You don't want to try and save it, and what's going to happen is you're going to lose the pressure in there, and it's not going to work when you need it to, okay? So make sure you're always checking the gauge to make sure that the extinguisher is properly pressurized when you need to use it. So we use the acronym PASS, P-A-S-S. When you're going to use an extinguisher. This is what you need to remember, okay? What you want to do is pull the pin. There is always a pin in the extinguisher to make sure that you can't squeeze the trigger by mistake. Okay? If you don't pull the pin, you cannot squeeze the trigger. So P stands for pulling the pin. Pull the pin. The A stands for aiming at the base of the fire. So in this case, our fire's in our pan here. Aim at the base of the fire. The base of the fire is here inside the pan. Why do we say that? We say that because the flames will start to come out here and they start to expose, maybe you have some cabinets here or something like that. Well, what happens is if you start chasing the fire up here at the flame instead of going at the base, by the time you get down to the base, you're going to be out of extinguishing agent in this extinguisher and the flames are just going to come right back up. So you want to put the fire out right at the base. Aim at the base of the fire is the A. S is squeeze the trigger, and the second S is sweep side to side. You should be a good 6 to 10 feet away from this fire, and you want to make sure that you keep yourself in between the fire and your exit at all times. This way, if you're unable to put this fire out, you can always turn around and you have a safe escape route out of here, okay? So definitely don't chase the fire, don't chase the flames up, okay? And remember, you only have, from the time this fire starts, you only have at 30 to 45 seconds tops before this fire is beyond your control and you need to get out, okay? We do recommend that you do not hesitate to call 911. Call 911, get the ball rolling, have us on our way. If you put the fire out, we'll come in and we'll check it out and make sure everything is okay, but you want to make sure that we come in and make sure that everything has gone out and the fire didn't spread anywhere else, maybe got behind the walls or something like that. So you definitely want to make sure that you call 911. Moving on to electrical fires. Most electrical fires, what we're seeing, begin in plugs or cords on appliances such as refrigerators, air conditioners, lamps, space heaters. Okay, all those appliances that we're talking about here, these heat or cool. So one of the main rules of thumb is that anything that heats or cools, you want to make sure that you're plugging directly into the wall outlet. Very simple, the light bulbs, you want to make sure that you're using light bulbs with the appropriate wattage for the size of the light fixture. And you want to protect all electrical cords from damage. Make sure that people aren't constantly stepping on these cords and fraying the wires and it starts to expose the wire, right? The jacket starts to come off and you're exposing the wire. That's not a good thing. So you want to keep these wires protected as much as possible. You always want to purchase electrical cords and appliances that show the UL symbol. Underwriters Laboratory, and this is a company that tests and inspects all of these items as they come out for sale, and they put their stamp of approval on it to say that they're safe to use. So you want to look for that UL label on all of these items that you buy. Be sure to use the three-pronged electrical devices in three-pronged outlets. So what does that mean? What we're seeing is a lot of people don't have the three-pronged plugs in their homes. And what we've noticed is some people are taking this bottom piece and they're snapping it off and then plugging it in. Obviously, we do not want to do that. We don't want to expose any wires. We don't want to bypass the ground here. So you want to make sure that you have a three-prong plug going into a three-prong outlet at all times. You definitely want to give your televisions, your stereos, computers, all of that plenty of space to breathe, okay? A laptop, something like that. A lot of people tend to sit maybe on their bed or on their couch and they have their laptop. And if you notice, if you sit your laptop on your lap, that laptop does start to get hot. Why is that? It has the little feet on the bottom of it, and those feet are there to keep the laptop raised slightly so that air can circulate underneath. So you want to make sure that you give these items plenty of room to breathe. You definitely want to prevent overloading of all of these outlets. So here we have a power strip, and this one has 6 plugs. I've seen some with 10 plugs, 12 plugs. That does not mean that you should be plugging 6 things into this, or 10 or 12, okay? What this is doing is it is taking the 2 plugs that you have in your wall and it's just giving you more access to your outlet. You're not getting any more power by using this, you're just getting more access to the outlet. So you're able to plug more things in, but you're still getting the same amount of power as if you only had the 2 plugs. So you want to make sure that you're not overloading this, okay? And that goes back to plugging in anything that heats or cools. That is going to draw a tremendous amount of power and should not be plugged into any of these items. Not an extension cord, not a power strip. Anything that heats or cools has to be plugged directly into the wall outlet. You also do not want to piggyback, meaning you don't want to take one of these and plug it into another one of these to get more outlets. Okay, you don't want to do that. You're overloading the outlet and it's not a good thing to do. This is what we keep saying, is to avoid plugging the high wattage, large appliances into the same outlet or circuit and never use the extension cords with those items. Again, power strips and surge suppressors don't provide more power, just access to the same limited capacity. So here you go. This right here is a power strip, okay? You want to make sure that if you do have one of these, that you have one that will automatically shut off if it's overloaded, okay? So you want to make sure that you do have that feature. Most of them do come with that feature now, so make sure that that feature is in there. If this shuts off because it's overloaded, it's telling you something. Something has to give. Don't just go and reset it and then keep everything plugged back into it, because it's going to happen again. So something is going to have to give. You're going to have to unplug something in order for this to be working properly. Home heating fires. The major cause of the home heating fires is poorly maintained systems, space heaters too close to combustible items. Now we're seeing this over the winter season all the time. And here I just have a space heater. Okay, this is a small space heater. There's a few things that we want to keep in mind when we have a space heater. Okay, so you want to turn off and unplug the space heater once you go to sleep. So what does that mean? You want to run the space heater in the room that you're looking to heat while you're still awake. Once you go to sleep, you should be turning it off and unplugging it. A lot of people tend to have it running all night long while they're sleeping, and that's not a good practice at all. You want to purchase space heaters with an automatic shut-off feature, okay? So this space heater here has an automatic shut-off feature, meaning if you have this space heater running and it tips over by mistake, this space heater will shut itself off, okay? Once you pick it back up, you are going to have to manually put it back on, okay? You do not want one that does not have that feature, because if it tips over and continues to run, that's a recipe for disaster. So you want to make sure that you have that safety feature in your space heater if you buy one. Give the space heater space, at least 3 feet from any combustible material such as bedding or furniture. What a lot of people tend to do is they have the space heater a foot away from their bed and it's blowing on them all night long because they want that heat blowing right on top of them. Okay? If that space heater were to tip over or something like that, it can light your mattress on fire, your blanket on fire. So 3 feet around your space heater should be free of any combustible items whatsoever. And again, this is an item that heats. Okay, remember what we said before, any item that heats or cools has to be plugged directly into the wall outlet. So you cannot use an extension cord with your space heater. While heater cords normally become warm during use, stop the heater if the cord becomes too hot. Okay, the cords will become a little warm. Again, it's not a problem, but if it's hot to the touch, there's a problem. You need to unplug that space heater, shut it off and unplug it. And again, like we said before, look for the UL marking when you're purchasing a space heater to make sure that it has been approved, tested and approved. Smoking material fires, we do see a lot of smoking fires from smoking, fatalities from smoking. Right here is a huge number. Smokers are 7 times more likely than non-smokers to have a fire. That's a big number. Nationwide, more people die in fires started by carelessly discarded smoking material than any other type of fire. Bedding is usually the first material to ignite. People are smoking in bed, they fall asleep, the cigarette's still lit, and it lights their bedding on fire. So a couple of things we do recommend if you do feel the need to smoke. We do recommend that you smoke outside, if at all possible. You want to use large, deep ashtrays, not something that's shallow where the cigarette can fall out. Completely douse the cigarette butts with water before discarding. And we say that completely, okay? You don't want to run the cigarette under the sink real quick and then take it and throw it in the trash, okay? That cigarette may not have gone out. You want to take it and put it in a can of water where it's going to sit there and soak in the water. You're going to make sure that that cigarette is out, okay? Never smoke while lying down, and never leave a lighted cigarette in an ashtray. Something may happen, the cigarette will fall out, the wind blows, it blows the cigarette out. You want to make sure that you're not leaving a lit cigarette in an ashtray. Candle fires. This is a huge thing, and there's a very simple answer to candle fires is to go to a flameless candle. But we'll go over a few safety features with a regular candle. You want to use candles with flame protective, non-combustible shades or globes. You want to place candles at least 4 feet away from curtains, draperies, anything combustible. It should be at least 4 feet away from all of these things if you're using a regular flame candle. Place candles out of reach of small children and pets. And this is huge. Extinguish candles before leaving the room. Notice it says the room. It doesn't say your house. If you have a candle burning in the bedroom and you're going to go into the living room to watch TV, you should be blowing out that candle in the bedroom. Okay? It should not be burning while you're not even in the room. Okay? So again, it does say the room, not your home. So make sure you're blowing out that candle. Again, the easy answer to this is to go to flameless candles. And we can avoid having to worry about blowing out the candle, having to worry about 4 feet away from anything combustible, having to worry about children knocking the candles over or becoming curious with the candles. So you can go to a flameless candle, they're battery operated. What's the worst that's going to happen is you forget to turn it off, the battery dies, and you replace the battery. In case of an emergency, you do not want to use candles to light your home. A lot of people, when the power goes out, they start looking for their candles. They have candles burning all over the home to provide light, okay? You should be prepared by having flashlights and extra batteries around in different areas of your home. In case the power does go out, you can always get to a flashlight and use the flashlight to provide yourself with some lighting. You do not want to use a candle for that, okay? We're going to move on to the early detection portion of our presentation, and this is where we talk about our smoke and CO alarms. Installing and maintaining smoke and carbon monoxide alarms will reduce your chances of dying in a fire by 50%. 50% is a huge number for something as simple as having and maintaining a working smoke carbon monoxide alarm. 70% of fire deaths occur in homes with a non-functioning smoke alarm or no smoke alarm present at all. So it's both. It's not just that they don't have a smoke alarm, but they had one and it wasn't working, meaning they didn't change the batteries, they didn't replace the alarm after its end of life. So you have to make sure that you're replacing the batteries if you have one that is still operated by a replaceable battery. If you have a 10-year sealed unit, you make sure that you replace it after the 10 years is up or when it starts to give you an end-of-life warning. You want to make sure that you're installing at least one smoke CO alarm on every floor and one smoke-only alarm in every bedroom. So the combos go on every level of your home in the common area, and the smoke only goes in every bedroom. Alarms should be installed on the ceiling not less than 4 inches from the wall. All right? And if the alarm is installed on the wall, because it is possible, some people don't put them on the ceiling for some reason, we do recommend that you put it on the ceiling whenever possible. But if you cannot put it on the ceiling for some reason, it must be placed between 4 and 12 inches from the ceiling, and you do not want to put it in a corner. You want to make sure that you're testing your alarm at least once a month by pressing the test button. If your alarm still uses removable batteries, be sure to change them twice a year. And the easy way to remember that is when you change your clock, you change your battery. Okay? You don't want to wait until you start hearing the chirp telling you that the battery is dead, because by then it's too late already. The battery is already almost dead. So you want to make sure that you're replacing it twice a year when you change your clock. All the new smoke alarms, which I have one right here, do have a sealed 10-year battery. It's a lithium-ion battery inside, and you don't have to worry about replacing the battery anymore. You cannot access the battery compartment. The battery is sealed inside the alarm. One of the reasons why they did this, right? The battery is not removable, it's not replaceable. What was happening was people were cooking and stuff like that, and the alarms were going off. And what did people do? They would take the alarm down, they would pull the battery out, and they would put the alarm to the side. The problem was people were forgetting to put the battery back in, and then they had a fire and their alarm was not working. So they have sealed units now where you don't have to worry about changing the battery. You cannot remove the battery. These alarms are good from 7 to 10 years, depending on how often you have the alarm going off, how often you're testing it, and everything else. But 7 to 10 years, and they do have an end-of-life warning telling you that the battery is dying inside, and it will chirp once every couple of minutes. When you start to hear that chirp, that's telling you that the battery is dying inside. It is time to get a new alarm. So here you go. You have a single chirp every 30 to 60 seconds, low battery or malfunction signal. Now, because we're talking about a combination alarm, this is going to make 2 separate and distinct noises. One is for smoke fire, the other one is for carbon monoxide. And you need to know the difference so that when your alarm goes off, you know what it means. So 3 long beeps is for smoke or fire. Smoke or fire has been detected, and you're going to hear 3 long tones coming from your alarm. 4 short beeps, carbon monoxide has been detected. So you want to make sure that you know the difference so that you know what this alarm is trying to tell you. If carbon monoxide is being detected in your home, you cannot sense that. Okay? Carbon monoxide they call the silent killer. They call it the silent killer because you can't hear it, smell it, taste it, see it. You have no idea that there's carbon monoxide there other than the fact that your alarm is going off and letting you know. Okay? If you do have carbon monoxide and the alarm is going off because you have carbon monoxide in your home, open the windows, get some fresh air, get outside and call 911. Okay? The alarms do go off at a low level of carbon monoxide, but you do want to get some fresh air, get outside, call 911. We will come in and we'll find out where the carbon monoxide is coming from, and we'll be able to shut the source. Obviously, if your alarm is going off for smoke or fire, you want to make sure you get everybody up and out of the home as quickly as possible, and you want to make sure that you do close that door behind you, and we're going to get into that during our planning stage of the presentation. Something that a lot of people don't realize, don't know, or don't even think about is fire safety for the deaf or hard of hearing. People with hearing loss, even those with mild to moderate range, will not wake up to the sound of a standard smoke alarm. Okay, so what do they have now? They have these alarms, which are bed shakers. They have different types of alarms. They have ones that have strobes on them. They have ones that are a bedside alarm with a shaker to it. And what it is a low-frequency alarm signal combined with a tactile notification appliance, which is the bed shaker. All right, so what this alarm will do, and I'm going to show you a little picture real quick. This is what one of these alarms would look like. This right here is a bedside alarm. This alarm goes right next to your bed, and it connects to your smoke alarm in your home. Once your smoke alarm activates in your home, this bedside alarm is going to read fire, and it's going to start saying fire. What happens then is this cord comes out, and there's a bedside shaker that's going to vibrate. This vibrating pad goes under the pillow. When the alarm goes off, it activates the shaker, and the shaker will start to vibrate under the person's pillow, notifying them that their alarm is going off, there's a fire in their home. These are very good for anybody who is hard of hearing, who is deaf, who cannot hear a regular alarm, or is struggling to hear the alarms. This is a great option. You want to make sure that you do look into these if you know anybody that is deaf or hard of hearing. So we're going to move on into our planning stage. You want to make sure that you have and prepare thoroughly drilled fire escape plans, because that's going to mean the difference between surviving and not surviving in a fire. You want to make sure that you have these plans with everybody in your home and that you go over it quarterly, okay? Right here is just a simple diagram. It's a floor plan of a home. All right, you maybe want to draw something like this with everybody in your home so that you know what's happening in your home. You know all the exits. You know where you could get out. You know the ways out of the room. You know where the smoke alarms are in the room. You want to make sure that you know everything in the home, okay? The last time that you want to sit and try and develop a fire escape plan is when you have a fire. It's too late, okay? So you want to try and develop this plan before you have a fire, and that everybody knows exactly what to do and how to get out in the case of a fire, okay? Knowing your building is huge. You need to know if you live in a fireproof or a non-fireproof building, because that will determine how you should plan for your escape in a fire. If you are unsure of what type of building that you live in, you can always check with the New York City Department of Buildings, and it will let you know whether you live in a fireproof or non-fireproof building. So we're going to go into the differences between what you would do if you lived in a fireproof building versus what you would do if you lived in a non-fireproof building. So if you live in a non-fireproof building and there is a fire in your building, you must leave immediately. That fire can spread from one apartment to the next, from one floor to the next. So you must leave immediately if you live in a non-fireproof building. However, if you live in a fireproof building and the fire is in your apartment, you need to leave immediately and make sure you close the door behind you. You must close that door to isolate the fire, contain it within your apartment, and prevent it from spreading outside of your apartment. That is if you live in a fireproof building, fire in your apartment. If you live in a fireproof building and the fire is not in your apartment, okay, what do? It is usually safer to stay inside your apartment rather than entering the dangerous smoke-filled hallway. If you live in a fireproof building and the fire was on your floor and that person left and the door stayed open for some reason behind them and the floor is now contaminated, the hallway is contaminated with smoke, and now you try to walk out because you're trying to escape, you're going to walk into the smoke-filled hallway, you're going to lose your orientation, you're not going to be sure where you're going, your door closed behind you, and now you're stuck in this hallway. So if you live in a fireproof building, the fire is not in your apartment, again, usually safer to stay inside your apartment. Don't be afraid to call 911 to let us know that there is a fire in your building, and give us your apartment number and we will send somebody over to check up. But you want to make sure that you do stay in your apartment. couple things that you can do if you see smoke maybe coming in from underneath your doorway is you could take a damp towel and shove it underneath the door so that no smoke comes in underneath your door or something like that. In case of a fire, you don't want to try and fight the fire yourself. We went over exactly how much we can handle as far as putting a fire out, okay? And this is a very small thing that we were talking about. Other than that, you should not be trying to fight the fire yourself. What that does is that causes a delay in you escaping, in you notifying the fire department, and now everything is delayed, giving this fire more time, and it's going to get worse and worse. Okay, so you want to try and get this ball rolling as quickly as possible by escaping and calling 911 as soon as possible. You do not want to stop to get your belongings. Okay, you should have a ready bag in case of an emergency where you have to immediately evacuate that you would leave near your door, where you would have everything that you grab and go if you need to. But you do not want to stop and start gathering any kind of belongings in the middle of a fire. You need to get everybody and get out, okay? You implement that fire escape plan that we were talking about that you're going to practice with your family, and you want to use the closest and safest exit. Again, if smoke is present, stay as low to the floor as possible. Heat rises, the smoke rises, all rises. You want to make sure that you stay as close to that floor as possible. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. You want to make sure that you close the door on your way out. We are not using elevators during a fire. Okay? Some fire strategies for families with members with autism. Again, it's something that a lot of people don't tend to pay attention to, but it is something that we do want to point out. You want to practice the fire drills. Many people with autism respond very well to routines. So you want to make sure that you practice this escape plan with them, practice the fire drill with them during a calm time where the routine gets built into them and they get used to that routine. This way, when there is an actual emergency, they just treat it like everything else, like as if it was a regular fire drill, and they know exactly what to do. One of the tips that you can do is wrap them in a blanket or coat to give them that sense of security. Take a blanket, wrap it around them, and make them feel comfortable, make them feel secure. And you want to pick a meeting place that is quiet and familiar to them. Okay, you don't want to put them in an area that's unfamiliar to them where they're going to feel uncomfortable or insecure. Okay, so you want to pick a nice, comfortable meeting place that they are familiar with. So just to go over some of the key points here, all right, just to recap really brief. Most fires begin in kitchens or bedrooms during the cold winter months, which is what we said, okay? And we went over how to avoid it and where it was all coming from. The major causes of residential fires are improperly discarded smoking materials, faulty electrical wiring, and the use of space heaters or open flames, and the hot stove. So again, we went over the open flames with the stove and the candles, the space heater safety, okay? We went over all of this. Major causes: no operable or audible smoke alarm, inappropriate evacuation response and attempting to fight the fire, not having a fire escape plan, and the blocked or inaccessible escape routes. So how do we prevent that? Again, we want to know our escape routes. Review the fire safety escape plan with your family quarterly. Remind the parent caretaker to check operation of the smoke CO detectors. All right, we should be checking those once a month to make sure they're operating properly. If you still have one that has a battery, change the battery when you change your clock. Be aware of more vulnerable populations. Last of our fire safety tips, again, you want to place the smoke alarms in every sleeping area, okay, and make sure that you check them monthly. Create and practice your fire escape plan. In an emergency, leave immediately, okay? If you have a fire in your home, leave immediately. Close that door behind you, all right? Keep flammable material in safe areas. Don't overload these outlets that we were speaking of. Stay alert around the kitchen, right? Stand by your pan. We don't want to do any unattended cooking by walking away from the stove while we are cooking. You want to blow out the candles when you leave the room that the candle is burning in. Remember, we're saying the room, not your home. Teach kids to never play with matches and lighters, all right? We definitely want to reinforce that with them, that they should not be playing with these candles, the matches, the lighters, the stoves, or anything like that. Keep an area of 3 feet around the stove where the children are not allowed to be in. And you want to put barriers against your fireplace, your stove, and your heating units, like I just said, 3 feet area around your stove where the children should not be going anywhere near. That concludes our fire safety presentation today. I want to thank you for joining us. All of the material that we went over today can be accessed on our website at www.fdnysmart.org. And we have it in several different languages, so you'll be able to download and print out if you need to any of these materials, and they are all provided on that website. Thank you very much.